Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, we will be taking a close look at these medallions, or tiers, surrounding the mystery character, and the additional two we see above the characters at the end. I have seen a lot of people refer to them as tiers, and others refer to them as medallions. We will be using these two terms interchangeably, as we don't know their official names. We will cover how they relate to theme temples, new dungeons, new abilities, the returning sages, and more. The term tiers has been used in a lot of Zelda games for items of great importance, such as powering up or restoring the Master Sword, which we already know we will have to do in this game. But where do the tiers come from, and what exactly are they going to be used for? In our last video, we covered a lot of great theories on the vials and the vessel in the spot where we normally see the Sheikah Slate, so please check out that video if you haven't already. If you want a shout out and to have your theory or question be discussed on our next video, comment down below and please give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss us discussing your theory or question in one of our upcoming Zelda theories, news, rumors, and other videos, including our podcast, the Hylian Gamescast. Here I have a lot of my personal favorite theories on these tiers. If you have your own that we missed, please comment them below and let us know. Before we begin, this video is sponsored by DreamController.com, which sells you a lot of great custom controllers, consoles, and accessories. I'll have my review of this amazing Zelda-themed Switch coming in a few days. You can use this link below for a great discount, and it will really help out the channel. The most common thought from fans is that these medallions or tiers will be related to the sages, as we usually have 7 sages, if we include Zelda, like in Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and several other Zelda games. These 7 sages were referred to as 7 maidens in A Link to the Past, who are meant to be the descendants of the 7 sages, and have a similar role. In fact, the title for the 7 maidens was eventually switched back to the 7 sages. Breath of the Wild hints at 7 sages with the 7 heroines that are praised by the Gerudo, with a mysterious 8th heroine. But we aren't sure if they are meant to be related or their own new thing. In the book Creating a Champion, we can see Nintendo did actually have plans to include 7 champions, or possibly even sages, before getting the idea to change them to 4 champions. We have concept art for a Goron, Zora, Gerudo, and Rito, just as we have in the final game, but we also have a Kokiri sage, yes, Kokiri, not Korok, with a whip, and a Sheikah sage with a claw shot or hook shot like weapon, once again giving us 7 sages, including Zelda. Oddly enough, Wind Waker's thought to have 9 sages. As 𝗟𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝗆 and others have stated with Breath of the Wild, its DLC and the sequel, concepts and ideas that went unused in the original game were brought back as DLC. Then, the idea for a direct sequel came about due to them having so many great ideas that would simply be too big or game-changing for just DLC. So they decided to make the sequel based off of what was originally unused ideas or concepts for Breath of the Wild. I think this will be one of the many unused ideas that has made its way into the sequel, and why we see 7 tiers or 7 medallions to match with the 7 sages. In my previous video, we discussed the importance of the Torri gates we see in the sky, as well as the 2 different types of powers Link will have in the game. Just as with Breath of the Wild having the champion abilities and the Sheikah Slate runes, Tears of the Kingdom will have a similar dichotomy of magic or abilities closely related to the Zonai and the goddesses or sages. But we will get to exactly how that will work in just a moment. For now, what are these Torri gates? In Japan and surrounding areas, the Torri gates are said to mark the transition of going from the mundane to a sacred or holy place, usually located at or near the entrance of a shrine or holy temple used to worship a god or deity. You can watch the last video for a much more in-depth description. And I even plan on making another video sometime later this week, which will include a lot more evidence from the games and interviews. In Tears of the Kingdom, I believe these will be used to open portals to take you to the entrance of this game's version of themed temples and dungeons, which is exactly what I believe we see Link exiting when opening these large doors. Similar to previous Zelda games, these temples will be closely related to the sages. Completing a temple may awaken a sage or something similar, and have Link blessed with one of these tiers or medallions, just as helping a champion in Breath of the Wild blesses Link with a champion ability. Perhaps these will be tiers from the sages. collectively all of them adding up to be tiers of the kingdom, as each sage represents a major race within Hyrule. And we see from Breath of the Wild and previous Zelda game, tiers do have special powers, and even awakens 𝗏, the spirit resting in the Master Sword for thousands of years. Also, it's not very clear on this, but it could have something to do with how the Master Sword was able to be fixed while resting in the pedestal. We can see something matching the shape of these medallions being used in Link's gauntlet or glove. In the carving, we can see light shining from the medallions, just as we see with the medallions on the gauntlet glowing with the golden light, which is obviously a different type of power or glow coming from the green spirit hand. I think we see this here in this scene, as Link has the medallion in his glove as he pulls out the sword in front of this glowing light, before holding it in a way similar to in Skyward Sword when the goddess flames are powering it up. Whether these are from the sages or goddesses, we know previous games have you collecting tears to also power up or heal the Master Sword like in Spirit Tracks and Skyward Sword. We also do know that Link will be gaining and using medallions to use in his glove, because in this scene, which is most likely right after he acquires the gauntlet, the slot with the medallion seems empty. And yes, I do realize in the scenes where he is using the medallion, the symbol on it looks different than what we see in the cave carvings. However, just as with all of the other carvings, I think this is just a stylistic choice to show how or where these medallions or tiers come from, instead of each having its own individual symbol. Each of the medallions or tiers will have a different ability or power, similar to each champion ability giving Link a new power in Breath of the Wild after saving the champion and completing a divine beast, whereas the green spirit hand's abilities will be more akin to the 𝗙cie abilities. So far, we have seen Link use this golden ability to reverse time, but I believe we will see him getting at least 6 more abilities, one for each medallion or tier. I would like to know what abilities you think Link would get from these sages as well, so please comment below, let us know, and we will read them off on our next video. I think we could see something similar to being revived, like with Mipha's Grace, or breathing underwater for underwater exploration with the Sage tier. The Goron medallion could give Link a shield similar to Daruk's protection, or something more close to Din's fire. Just as I'm sure you do, I have a lot of ideas for the abilities we get from these tiers or medallions, as well as the rest of the abilities we get from the green Zonai or Spirit Hand. Just as with Breath of the Wild, I think we will get most, if not all of the Spirit Hand abilities in the beginning, as we do with the Sheikah Slate, and we would only be getting the tiers or medallions as we complete the temples in whichever order we come across them, with this time reversal mechanic being given to us almost immediately, as it looks like it will be required to travel to certain areas in the sky. Almost like Rauru immediately giving you the light medallion in the Chamber of Sages without you needing to complete any dungeons or temples. Perhaps this will be the Sage tier given to you by Princess Zelda or Hylia, as Zelda and Hylia have a long history with the power to control time. These medallions giving Link abilities is actually an idea that comes directly from the original use of the Sage medallions from Ocarina of Time. Originally, instead of Din's fire or the fire arrows, you would equip the fire medallion to use Din's fire, or equip it with arrows for fire arrows. In fact, each of the medallions could be used on their own or with arrows. The water medallion, originally ice medallion, would give us ice arrows and breeze platforms in the water, which was an idea reused in Majora's Mask. In Breath of the Wild, since we had to use the Sheikah Slate rune to raise ice pillars in the water, and it being gone in this game, I think this is exactly how we will regain a version of this ability, with Link using the water or ice sage tier or medallion to raise ice pillars. I believe we will get these themed temples as well as plenty of mini dungeons similar to the Sheikah shrines, perhaps this time being Zonai shrines. I would personally love for the temples to be located in Hyrule on the ground, but can understand if these temples are located in the sky or a different realm entirely, requiring the use of these Torri gates. After all, this was teased in the original Breath of the Wild, with Gerudo Desert having a location titled the Arbiter's Grounds. Maybe in Tears of the Kingdom, it will be one of the islands we see floating into the sky, with all of the sand pouring off of it, and finally being accessible. The water temple for the Zora is always located below Lake Hylia, with the entrance being at the bottom of one of these islands, which again matches perfectly with where we know it's located in all of the other games, such as Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. We already know there are plenty of areas within Death Mountain which could easily house a fire temple. An ice dungeon could be easily found by a simple avalanche, or a similar method to how we find the Great Skeleton in the mountains. The point is, there are plenty of ways we could come across some of these temples and have it being easily explained that we just couldn't see it or access it in the original Breath of the Wild. But now, due to a lot of the earthquakes we see, they are finally being revealed. Which areas in Hyrule do you imagine would be a great place for a temple to have been hiding? Personally, I love the idea of getting more actual, larger dungeons, going from 4 divine beasts to 7 full traditional themed temples. And yes, Nintendo does listen to fans and has made plenty of changes to the development of Zelda games in the past, which is responsible for Wind Waker 2 becoming Twilight Princess, and Breath of the Wild coming from them correcting their mistakes on Skyward Sword, as they have stated in interviews. So, with everyone asking for traditional themed temples and a larger variety of dungeons or enemies to return, I can easily see Nintendo adding them to Tears of the Kingdom. Without the Divine Beasts, it would be interesting if we have to help these 4 champions become the new sages, then being set out on a quest to find the remaining sages. Thank you all so much for watching the video, and please, if you made it this far, consider subscribing and commenting below. It really does help us out. Hello everyone, I just want to say thank you for watching the video all the way through. Some of you have been asking, and yes, we still have shirts and other merch available at teespring.com. You can find a link in the description below. If you purchase one and send us a picture wearing it, we will give you a shout out and include your picture during one of our upcoming videos. Thank you to our amazing Patreon supporters, starting off with our royal family, Shadow to Us. On our champion tier, Justin Clark, Monica Spath, Sober X. In the Sheikah tier, Andramoy, Joseph, Natsu, Wrecker1, Rusty Caulfield, Tremel. And in the Kokiri tier, Gene Pinna, Chad Costin, David Guthman, Candy, Disappointment, Gus Calvo, Zane, Lean, Lovable Christie, Mr. Monocled Metroid, and whoever this is only donated to hear Jesse speak my name. Thank you all so much. If any of you would like your name to be featured at the end of any of our videos, or to get a shout out at the beginning of our Zelda podcast, the Hylian Gamescast, and to have any of your topics or questions answered or turned into a full video to be featured here on our channel, along with many other things, please join our Patreon and help support the channel. Thank you all so much. Happy Halloween.